Hello and welcome to the episode of In The Treehouse, where you are recapturing the dreams of your business, just conversations with small business owners and finding out about their dreams and their hopes and challenges and just having authentic conversations. My guest today is Tom Viera, who is a neighbor here in the neighborhood that we live in, and a local business owner. And we'll get into that here in just a moment. As always, I do want to stop and pause, thank my sponsors. One, of course, is my business is sponsoring this, Action Coach, where we are doing a lot with helping business owners to just capture their dreams. I just got off a call with one of my clients, and he started with me 2 months ago, and he's like, Mike, when we started 2 months ago, I thought I was going to have to shut my business down. He's like, now I'm booked up so far, I have to hire people. It's like, that's what happens when you start focusing on your business and we start coaching. So that's what I do. And that's what Action Coach does is helps people build their businesses. And of course, my other sponsor is Fist Bump, that manages my LinkedIn account and manages this show and produces this show. If you are wanting to explore relationships and connections through LinkedIn, Fist Bump is the company that you need to work with. They are great about developing you as the known entity in your industry, and so I appreciate their sponsorship. So business stuff is out of the way. Now we can sit and talk and have a good conversation. And so, Tom, as with every guest, what was your treehouse when you were 6, 7, 8, 12 years old? Where was it, and what did you do?
Good question. So I didn't have an actual treehouse, although I just built a couple of years ago, built a treehouse in the back, similar to yours, for my son to have a treehouse.
Yeah.
But I guess I would say that it was a tree. It just didn't have a house in it. It was I lived in it wasn't a neighborhood like we live in now, right?
Yeah.
It was just a street with houses on it. And there was an area across the street that was undeveloped.
Yeah.
And it led, there was a lot of property back there, and it led to some old gravel banks and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
way deep in the woods and up the road. But there was this really big evergreen tree,
Okay.
really massive.
Yeah.
And it had such a beautiful kind of mossy kind of area around it. And, we climb the tree sometimes or whatever, just hang out there. That was a beautiful place to go.
Yeah.
As a child, to just kind of
And where was that? Was that here in Georgia, or where?
No,
was
it was in Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a New Englander.
I am a native New Englander. Yep.
Yeah.
I moved to Georgia in '96.
Okay.
So I'm kind of, I guess, considered a son of the South now,
Yeah.
adopted,
Yeah.
right? So I'm an adopted son of the South. Yeah, I've been here long enough to claim that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. But Rhode Island, that must have been beautiful when you were a kid.
I love Rhode Island. I kind of consider myself escaped from Rhode Island in a weird way. I loved it there, but it's the smallest state in the union, and that's it's small.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody, and so I moved down to Georgia, and I love it here. This is obviously home for our kids now, so
Yeah.
we're not going anywhere. But I love it here. I wouldn't go anywhere even if I could.
Yeah. Well, and certainly this time of year, the weather is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, we're loving it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, had you been on the show about 12 weeks ago?
I mean, yeah, even last Sunday it was, or Saturday. My son's in baseball, and we had a first game of the morning on Saturday morning, and it was literally freezing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, my daughter's softball, I coach her team. We had a 9 o'clock game, and I told the girls, do not use your composite bats in the.
That's right. That's right.
You're not using them. In the game, it should be warm enough by the time but warming up. I don't want you warming up.
Yeah.
So but now we're hopefully out of the freezing.
This. That's right. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. So when you moved down here in '96, what brought you down here?
Business for a job, and and I ended up working for a few years, and then went back to get my MBA at Georgia, and so I'm a UGA guy.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Which that makes you a son of the South.
that's true. I suppose.
Once
Yeah, right.
once you've gone to UGA, then
Yeah.
you're not even adopted. You're fully
Okay.
embraced.
Nice. So there you go. There
From
you go.
my, I am not a UGA person, but that's the way it appears.
There you go. Go dogs.
Yeah, yeah. So, oh, cool. Um, and you have been in corporate life for a lot of your career.
I've been in corporate life for most of my career. I'm kind of. It's interesting. I kind of consider myself kind of weird in this way that I work for big business, but I have kind of a small business mindset, and
Yeah,
I kind of try to bring that actually to my
sure.
big massive software company that I
Yeah,
work with, and kind of just being entrepreneurial spirited,
yeah,
and every company that I've ever worked for, and I've worked for a bunch of different, blue chip big
yeah,
corporations, and I
yeah,
just try to keep that mindset that I'm
yeah,
like, I don't want to just be a cog in the wheel. I want to kind of have maybe a fresh look or
yeah,
keep kind of an entrepreneurial spirit when I'm
yeah,
looking at problems or issues or
yeah,
challenges. Yeah.
yeah. I can resonate with that because I was in ministry
Mm,
for 8 years. I
mm,
was a pastor up in Pittsburgh and in New York before that, and left ministry and went into corporate life. Right, and I climbed the corporate ladder,
mm,
but I spent years trying to figure out how I could do ministry in corporate,
mm.
and it didn't go over well.
No,
They really weren't interested in that sort of thing.
well, it's interesting because I have one of my favorite people in the world is a guy I used to work with, and going back now, I guess, gosh, this would be almost 20 years, and he was the most faith-based man in business I'd ever met. He
Mm,
wore it on his
yeah,
sleeve and was unashamed of doing that.
yeah,
And and what I found is that he was having a great impact on a lot of people.
yeah,
Um, he Conversations would change when he came in the room,
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah,
People maybe changed their language when he
yeah,
was in the room and that kind of thing.
yeah,
It was fascinating to watch from the outside and seeing kind of the impact that
yeah.
he was having without even really realizing he was having it. Maybe he knew some of it, maybe most
Maybe.
of it he probably didn't.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I would say the same for yourself that, you probably had greater impact on so many people that you didn't even realize you were impacting.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. And if so, then that's awesome.
Mhm.
But yeah, it neither here nor there. I mean that whole path and being in the corporate world, right? Like yourself. I mean, I climbed to be chief of staff at Fiserv, right, and got a severance from Fiserv and started this business.
Oh, great. Mhm.
But yeah, so you've done kind of that where you've gone up this corporate ladder
Yeah.
and doing quite well, but at the same time, with the small business mindset, you've taken this venture. So tell us about that venture and maybe like yes, you had this entrepreneurial spirit,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And maybe that dream is what took you to this. Why?
Yeah, it's such a long and winding road, I guess. So back in, um, I guess sometime around 2002 or 2003 ish,
Yeah.
um, I had been downsized from the company I was with. I actually got hung up in the Enron stuff. I
Oh,
was working for PricewaterhouseCoopers, as a matter of fact, in their bankruptcy proceeding work. And so it depended on who called us first. If the
yeah,
company called first, we tried to keep them out of bankruptcy. If the
yeah.
bank called first, we
We tried
tried
to,
to, walk
yeah,
them through the bankruptcy proceeding process, right? And that was an interesting job, probably one of the most interesting jobs I've ever had. It was
yeah,
fascinating going to work every day, not knowing what you're going to
yeah,
find and do,
yeah.
which was pretty cool. But then when Enron happened and all of the accountancy companies needed
Changed.
to, they
Yeah,
needed to jettison all of their
yeah.
their uh, um,
All the
all of their arms that were not doing accountancy. So
yeah,
there's lots of pieces in that
yes,
puzzle,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So uh, any kind of consultancy and many other pieces were removed, right? So I
Mm,
got hung up in that, and so I was thinking, what do I want to do right now? I had just gotten out of grad school not long prior, and so it's like I think I need to maybe open up a business,
yeah,
right? So I've always had an affinity for dogs, always been a dog guy. And so I kind of poked around a little bit and decided I'm going to open up a self serve dog wash facility and pet boutique.
Okay.
and I opened that up.
Yeah.
And that was so fun. And in fact, what I was intending to do originally was I was going to open up 3 or maybe 4 locations,
Yeah.
and then I was going to franchise it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was my dream.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward the clock. Now that I have a franchise, I had no idea. it was so much.
Yeah.
There's no way I would not have been able to do it.
You were not prepared.
I was
at the
not
time.
prepared at the time. And even now, I don't think I could stand up a franchise on its own. You know, a franchisor setup.
Yeah.
So interesting story about our franchise. The way we fell into this. I've got a good friend who.
Before you go there,
Yeah.
and we'll get there.
Mhm.
So what happened to the self-serve?
I ran that for a year. I started it, ran it for a year or 2, a year and a half maybe.
Okay.
And then one of the economy crashes that we had happened, right?
Yeah.
Early 2000s, and I thought, well, and I was really close to opening up the second location. I mean, I was literally had the building picked out, and I was going through like designing the layout and whatnot. And the crash happened. So I backed away from that real quick and decided that I wasn't going to do that, that second one. And I let it kind of sit and percolate for a little bit. I hired, some folks to come in and run it for me. And then I went back to corporate. Yeah. And I figured, well, if the economy comes back the way I think it might and hope it does, maybe I'll go back and, open a second, and I'll just do it differently. Like rather than like, I was going to hop around and kind of start them all, right? And kind of make sure they were running well. Decided I was going to just, if I went back to it, I was going to hire teams to do it and then do it that way. But I never did. I just stayed back in the corporate world. And the corporate world is a way of just kind of sucking you in, and holding you tight, and just like not letting you get out, right? I just never picked up on it. And then after the 10 years was over, I let it go, shut it down.
Yeah. So you committed to 10 years, or was it like an agreement, a franchise that you had bought?
It was a lease.
Okay.
Once the lease expired.
Okay.
Yeah. It was not a franchise. It was something I came up with on my own and researched and just built.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that must have been maybe bittersweet to let it go.
It was. I was just having my son at the time, and with an expanding family and other kind of things to focus on. It needed to go. And just the same way when I've been opening the current business that my wife and I have, I had to let go of a lot of personal things that I had, were taking some time up, and I had to just push away from the table from those things so that I could focus on, the other thing, the business.
I want to explore that a little bit, because I think there's a nugget there. And we have a lot of people who watch who are starting businesses and, wanting to grow their business. And that idea or that suggestion that you have to give up something for this other. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people think that they can have it all.
You know what? Here's the best analogy that I can come up with off the top of my head is becoming a parent, right? So like before I was a parent, I had, I was blissfully ignorant, and I'm thankful that you don't get insight to the nitty gritty details of things and the joy that those things bring and the difficulties and challenges, which is also joy. Yeah. Because looking back now, had I understood what I was missing, it would have been miserable. I would have been miserable in missing out on what I, hadn't had yet. Yeah. So having children completely destroyed my prior life. I mean, I can't do the things that I used to do. Yeah. I don't want to do the things I used to do either, by the way. Yeah. But I can't do them. Right? I can't just drop and go on a ski trip tomorrow. Yeah. Or like, it's cold here in Georgia, I want to go to Florida for a week. I can't do that because I've got commitments and responsibilities and things that are much more important than that fleeting desire. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I know that there are plenty of people who've said the same thing, and maybe they were even striving to try to do this, that they're going to bridge the life that they used to have with the life that they have now as a parent, or the life that they had prior to opening up a business, or thinking that they can, well, I can just do that on the side or open it up, whatever. And it's it's not designed that way.
Yeah.
And I think, in my opinion, that you really do, I think, in my opinion, have to close a door
Yeah.
before you can truly walk through another.
Mhm. Yeah. There are things. Uh, it makes me think about a conversation I had yesterday with someone where they were telling me about this situation that in their life where they had to like shut something off, and let it go
Hmm.
before they could get the success that they wanted.
Hmm.
And there were people who helped them to figure that out, but it is very true. Our path in life, has lots of opportunities, but that doesn't mean we take all of those opportunities into the next chapter of our life.
Yeah, I think that's so spot on and real, right?
Yeah.
And I keep harping on the thing with kids and such, but a good example would be I used to have a little sports car
Mhm.
before I got married and started a family, and I had a sports car, I had a Jeep,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
All the
like
toys.
all the toys. Those things weren't going to serve me
Yeah.
as a parent.
Yeah.
So, and I can't be so selfish as to say, I want to keep them anyway.
Yeah.
Like, no, I needed that money to fuel the
Right.
family that I was starting. Right.
Yeah.
So, those had to go. And I guess you could say it was bittersweet, but it was beautiful to say that that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I'm taking that and doing this with
Yeah.
it instead,
Yeah.
and so,
And it's much more fulfilling.
oh, it is. And, it's the process
Yeah.
that really is important to me, is enjoying that
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
That's really,
Yeah.
and the same applies completely to business.
Yeah.
It's the process.
Yeah.
I'm not waiting until my business gets successful to enjoy it. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it in through the struggle.
Yeah. 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 Enjoy the journey.
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. What was your biggest learning, I guess, from that first going into business? What was the thing that, if you were to, and I don't know whether you consider it a success or a failure or what. And I mean, I think failures are just opportunities to learn.
No question
it's
about
not
it.
like,
Absolutely.
It's not like, oh God, I failed at it. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what? I did it. So
I actually like when we have little failures. I tell this to my staff at my business now, that I want to rejoice whenever we have a mistake or a problem.
Yeah.
Because that means now we're going to learn from that.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do that again, because
Yeah.
now we fixed it.
Yeah.
We've learned from that. So
Yeah.
that's great. Let's
Yeah.
all be happy that happened, so that
Yeah.
we can grow from it. I would say that, I do consider it a success, even though I don't have the business now. And there were plenty of times that it was a difficult, sometimes financial drain, and difficult to run, even when
Yeah.
we were running it and it was doing well. I'm thinking about I used to have a partner when I worked at PwC that we would get called into court frequently, right?
Yeah.
And to testify for various things. And the partner that was getting coached on how to go in and speak at this hearing, he was getting interviewed. And the question to him was, of the jobs that you've worked on and worked through, how many of them were successful? And without even batting an eye, he said, all of them.
Yeah.
And the person said, all of them? How is that possible? I mean, you couldn't have, he said basically what we've just been saying, is that the process of working through this and what you do through that process and the work that's done for all of the people and all of the businesses and all that, that's all good work. That's all success.
Yeah.
So I would say it was a success because of that, if nothing else. That experience was amazing. The biggest lesson I think the biggest lesson that I kind of keep thinking since you've asked the question, is that yesterday is gone, and tomorrow is another day, right?
Yeah.
And so no matter the success or failure that I had yesterday, I don't know what's going to happen today. I've got to continue to push and work and be prepared for maybe a successful day or maybe not a successful day today, right?
Yeah.
So we would be working hard and striving and climbing the mountain, and then we'd slide down, and then be like, okay, we start climbing again, and so it's that not getting discouraged or overwhelmed when the slide happens,
Mhm.
and you just keep climbing.
Yeah. And as a coach, I would say that sliding back down is because you haven't learned the lesson you needed to
Yeah.
get past the
Yeah.
next stage.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's so many factors that come into play with things too. I mean, think about what's going on with, I work in the software industry for my day job, and we sell to the government a good bit, right?
Yeah.
And so what's going on topically right now
Yeah.
with Doge,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
well, how do you sell into that environment, right? So like there's so many facts. Sometimes they're completely uncontrollable,
Yeah.
completely uncontrollable, and they're just things that you've got to figure out a way to
Work
navigate.
around it.
Right?
You pivot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's one thing that, and last week I kind of did a recap of the first 12 episodes that I had. And one of the things almost every business owner said was small business owners and business owners adapt and figure out how to pivot, because one thing we can be sure of, there's going to be change.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
it's, today is not yesterday.
Right.
And tomorrow is not today.
Right.
And you got to be prepared for whatever it is, and embrace it and move forward.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be in that cycle.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's much more critical for we small business owners to be capable of pivoting, because hey, I mean, the business success or failure could be riding on that
Oh yeah.
ability and desire to pivot or not.
Oh, there's no pressure on business owners. What are you talking
Right.
about?
Right.
Everyone on my know sleeps like a baby every night.
Right.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah. Not frequently. A lot of them
not
lose
frequently.
a lot of sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that you closed down in 2012, 2013.
It would have been 2011, I think.
2011.
2012.
Yeah. Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. And I have to say, I was at PwC for a couple of years. Not when you were there, but back in 2006, 2007, 2008. I led the travel department
Okay.
at PwC.
Oh,
So I
okay.
managed all you people and all the flying and
Oh,
all that
boy.
kind of stuff
Oh,
that
man.
you did. It was
Not easy.
not
Not
easy. It
easy.
was, and it was not something that I loved as far as the structure, and things got changed after I left. But it was a fun job.
Yeah.
I mean, because it was fun being that senior manager that had a business card that I could walk into any
Oh, okay.
hotel,
Nice.
and
Be like, hey,
and drop my card and say, yeah, we make up a large percentage of your
Yeah.
sales.
Right.
Little
Little
what kind
extra
of room
attention.
do you have for me
Yeah.
tonight?
Right.
They got a few upgrades.
Good. Good.
Yeah, but nothing unethical. But,
Right. Yeah.
So anyway,
Good.
a connection there. So then between that time and when you started Dog Stop, were you just in corporate, or did you do anything else in between?
I
that?
was in corporate the whole time. Never did anything entrepreneurial. Lots of other things.
Well, you
that
did in business, just not.
Well, sure. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah. It was not. It
Not
was,
on your own.
Yeah. It was not on my own. So yeah. Good. Very, very good point. Yeah. So, but I always had that fire and desire.
Yeah.
So it was always lingering in the background.
Yeah.
And so I was starting to tell you the story of how we ended up deciding upon this.
Yeah.
Even I've got a really good friend who used to own a business that he sold.
Okay.
And he was looking to do his next thing,
Mhm.
right? So he's like, oh, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. He hired a franchise broker
Yeah.
to expose them to, opportunities.
Yeah.
And so he would ask me from time to time, hey, I'm a finance guy, right?
Yeah.
So he was like, can you look at the numbers of this franchise and tell me what you think about it? And so
Yeah.
I'd kind of poke around the data that they'd provide and say like, yeah, this one looks good, or this one doesn't look so good because of X, Y, Z or whatever, and just kind of give him my honest opinion of it. And so there was one that was the Dog Stop.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, you have not only, understanding of finances and stuff, but you used to kind of be in this industry, not
Yeah.
really, but sort of,
Yeah.
right? Dog industry, at least. And so he asked me to join a call with him with the franchise folks, right? So I joined that call and asked some specific questions that I felt were relevant, and they, I got all the, what in my opinion were the great answers, and the finances all looked good for this company. Everything looked good. It all checked off. And so we got off that call, and I told him that it really looked like a good opportunity. And he said, "So it looks like something you'd be interested in doing." And I said, "Sure, it looks great." And he said, "No, I mean that you." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't understand what you're asking." So, so I was like, "Well, I don't know. Let me go back and talk to my wife." So I went back, and she and I sat down, and these are like our best friends in the world. So we decided that.
And he wasn't the broker. He was
no. He was just our friend. He was just our friend, right? That was considering this business.
Yeah.
So we decided that sure, we felt, let's do it. Let's open a business together, which is probably not a good idea in most cases. But
together meaning you and your friend, or you and your wife?
My family and his family.
Okay, yeah.
Would be opening together. We'd be like partners. So my wife and I, and he and his wife.
Yeah.
And they ended up coming back and saying, "We've decided we're not going to do it." Now, and my wife was like, "Oh, I see where this is going. You're really interested in this." And it had really lit that fire that was smoldering, the little embers down there, and then you poke it and it goes, you know? So, so she was like, "I see what's going on here." And what I should have said, though, I should have backed up and said that I'd been that smoldering ember for a long time. And I had another neighbor of ours I had dinner with one night. His family came over, and we were talking, and he was saying that he was kind of wrestling with the same thing. Like, I really want to do something, I just don't know what to do, and this kind of thing. And he ended up saying that, he had been praying on it hard. I had been praying on it hard too, and not hearing anything. Yeah. And that night, to him, I had said, "I think I need to change my prayer, because I've been asking for, direction. I've been wanting like a map. Can you give me the hidden treasure map? Like kind of deal."
Yeah.
And I changed it and said, "Just give me a shoulder tap. Just kind of give me a shoulder tap, and maybe point me in a direction, right? And that's all I need."
Yeah.
And then it was very shortly thereafter, my buddy, and I had this conversation I just displayed to you. So after, I got some time to think about it, I said, "Well, I think God gave me my little shoulder tap.
Yeah.
I think that's what I think I got what I was asking for."
Yeah.
So it took off
time
from there.
To do it.
Yeah. So that was a big leap of faith.
Well, and in retrospect, I think, your friend that you were looking to go into business with, how God used that spark to get you even there.
Yes, that's exactly right. So I wouldn't have done this on my own, right? It would have. God needed to bring some other entity to you to even look at it. Right. And you've probably heard the funny story joke about like, somebody sitting on a roof of a flooded building, like, "God, please save me." I sent you a boat. I sent you, a raft. So like that was my little, that was my messenger, I guess you could call him.
Yeah. I was be facetious. Is the old story in the Old Testament where the prophet was like wanting to reject him, and God used the ass to come and talk to him. Go back to your friend and say, "Hey, I have a perfect biblical example here. For you were just the ass that God used to get me into this business."
And I'm super thankful for that. So maybe I do that, but I'm super thankful that I got that, because
I don't know him.
No, I understand it. It's a beautiful example, I think, of just trying hard to focus and think through, what your true desires are and how you're going to get there and that kind of thing. So it helped me, because I had plenty going on in life that I didn't need, another thing. Right. But once I got that smoldering ember burning.
So one of the things with every business, right. And part of the idea of this show is recapturing your dreams. Right. And you going into this business, you have certain dreams for yourself, your wife, your family, in doing this business. It's not just because, I'm already busy, so let's just get busier.
Yeah.
Right. What dreams do you have that you see being fulfilled through being a business owner?
I think I've kind of gotten to the point in my life where I've kind of turned a corner
Mhm.
on things, and life isn't about me anymore, and
Mhm.
it's not about what I can have or what I can attain or anything like that. It's starting to shift into legacy time
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
And so what I really hope and dream is that this business will grow
Yeah.
and do well, and it will be something that can maybe fuel a retirement for my wife and I, and be a legacy that I might be able to hand down to my children if they're
Yeah.
interested in that,
Yeah.
or not. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome. Beautiful.
that's what's
Beautiful.
fueling me at this point.
Yeah. So you bought the franchise how long ago?
Gosh, so it was um, November of 22.
Okay. Right.
Yeah,
A few years ago, right in
yeah.
the midst of the little thing that was going on in the
Well,
country.
thankfully, that had kind of settled
Yeah.
a good bit by then, 23. But yeah, it was. It took us a long, long time. I guess there's always bumps in the road that you don't foresee, right? And they're called blind spots for a reason. You can't see them.
Yeah.
But the folks at the franchise said the average after you sign your
Mhm.
agreement to getting open is 6 to 9 months
Yeah.
from the time that you sign. And so I told my wife, I was like, all right, that means 5 months. That's what I think I heard.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took 27 months from the time we
Wow.
signed our lease agreement until we opened our doors. It was such a bumpy road. It's so trying, and nothing's ever easy.
You must have questioned your decisions.
I never questioned it. I questioned why we were running into the speed bumps we were running into, and who created that speed bump overnight
yeah.
for me to bang into. I never questioned the decision. Thankfully,
Yeah.
there's always concern, and every time you're opening up a business, there's worry over it, and it's very expensive and very time consuming, and there's a lot of risk that comes along with that. And honestly, I think I never really questioned it because I really feel like I was kind of like, I don't know, positioned for this, or like I
Yeah.
kind of felt called to it.
Yeah.
Really, I did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Having that passion.
yeah,
And so 27 months later,
27
was
months later.
this past November, right?
Yeah, so we finally got to the point where we were looking like we were ready to go. There were some bumps in the road with the build out of the facility. It took, building permits in our county typically take a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because we were just modifying an existing building. It took 19 weeks for us to get our building permit. Yeah, that was a long time, and I was paying rent, by the way, this entire time. So yeah, it was very difficult on us to figure that out.
Yeah.
And some bumps in the road with the build out, but we finally got there. So
Yeah.
we're finally getting there, and so we were. If you were to be looking at, if you said, Tom, write me a business plan for this, and I want you to come up with the exact worst possible day
Uh-huh.
to open the doors.
Yeah.
It would probably be the day we opened. It's the day after Christmas.
Oh.
Was December 26th was the day that we were able to finally open the doors. We had the permits, the proper permits, and everything we needed. And the day after Christmas is not
a real busy day.
Real busy day, right?
It was a soft launch.
It was a soft launch.
Yeah.
It was a soft launch. And in fact, this is a little thing that I guess I would like to share is I'm truly trying to make the best out of every situation. When I was saying before about like when somebody makes a mistake or has a challenge or an issue, I want to rejoice in that because it gives us an opportunity to learn, right?
Yeah.
We did this. We had the same mentality with this, right? Like, great, we're gonna get this machine running perfectly.
Yeah.
We're gonna have the finest tuned processes because we're not going to be busy, right? So let's take the employees and train them really, really, really well.
Yeah.
And train them again.
Yeah.
And a little more.
Yeah.
And let's keep our facility as clean as it was the day we opened the door.
Yeah.
Right. And so all of these great things that we can continue to do, and making lemonade out of lemons, I guess, but just truly those things have been paying off for us now.
Oh yeah.
That we're starting to get busier now with spring break coming. And summer and
Yeah.
all that. So,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Congratulations. So, for those who are local,
yeah.
who have dogs,
Yeah.
where are you?
We are over in the Midway Park in Cumming. So it's off of Post Road.
Okay.
Midway Park has a little plaza in there with a few restaurants in the front. It's called Midway Family Festival, and it's got 4 or 5 ball fields in there. There's a football field, a couple baseball diamonds, and so lots of folks milling around.
Yeah.
Most of the people with kids in any sport will know where Midway is.
Yeah. See, and I know it because there's an awesome Mexican restaurant that's right there on the front of it.
7 Tequilas.
Yes.
Good restaurant.
It is a good
We eat there a lot.
Yeah, it's when we first moved up here, our realtor who was showing us houses actually took us there once. We looked at houses over in Forest Preserve or that area.
Yeah,
right in there. And so
well, I mean, that's one of the great things for the location for us is it's all homes. They're all families with dogs. You know, so it's a great location for us.
Yeah. A lot of people very local,
right?
And a service that people need.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've had a lot of learnings over the last 30 months now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For sure.
For those who are and actually have had conversations and know of a number of people that with the transitions that are happening in our world today, right? I mean, a lot of people who are leaving positions and looking for opportunities, and the franchise industry is going to probably boom.
I would think it would.
A lot of people, who will be done with whether it's they were in government for a long time or whether they're corporate and corporate's resizing or whatever. They're looking to do their own thing. What's some advice you'd have for folks who are looking at franchises?
I think I really love the way my buddy kind of got myself and a couple of other people that were trusted advisors to him, and get some other people involved and just think tanking it, maybe, just coming up with trying to not do it on your own. Blind spots I mentioned before, blind spots for a reason, right? So get a few folks involved in that, and this actually might be an interesting idea for you to maybe consider doing, that you could coach some people through what it really looks like, because you're not vested to the franchise, you're vested to the person, so you're trying to help them, the way I was trying to help my buddy. And I think for me, I had already done something in this industry myself and started it up and did it myself, but I really wanted to benefit from the mistakes that have already been made on a larger scale, and benefit from those and get the low-hanging fruit of benefits that they're going to provide right away from a franchise. So I really like that idea, and I am the benefactor of a lot of great things that I would have struggled to figure out on my own. In a business of this scope, it's a very large business. It's a 10,000 square foot facility. We got 100 kennels. So it's massive, right? Compared to what I had. So I didn't want to make mistakes. I wanted to have things run as smoothly as possible, and that's where the franchise came in. I think that you're right. There's going to be probably a good pickup in that, and because of those reasons, I think people are savvy and wanting to branch into something that they feel they have kind of maybe an automatic leg up in. Because of the franchise.
Well, and folks that some I coach and some I've just had conversations with who have franchises. One of the things I often hear is, boy, the franchise didn't tell me that when we first bought it. Right. Or in reality, the franchise may have told you that, but you weren't listening because you're going in with rose-colored glasses. So I like the idea of having a disinterested party, whether that's me or somebody else, who, they're vested in you. They're not vested in the other side, and want to make sure that you're making the best decision. Because I think a lot of people, they go into it, just like they go into any kind of purchase, and yes, I can do it, and they're telling me I can make millions of dollars in the first year, because one person one time made millions of dollars in the first year.
Yeah, and I think so. Looking real close at that item 19, really digging into the details, really like they're obligated to provide you legally. They required to give you all the information that's there. You need to learn how to read it and learn how to understand it. And if you don't, then get folks that can.
Yeah.
I'm part of a men's small group in my church, and so having those guys, just even if they're not going to dig into the details, they're going to be people that are trusted confidants that be like, hey, did you think about this, or are you sure you want to do that, or yeah, great, go, and so having cheerleaders and people that are sounding early warnings and things like that. So I think having that group of people that you can lean on and lean into and look to for advice and just the ability to act as a sounding board is absolutely critical.
Yeah. What is the biggest pain point you're suffering from right now as you're starting up?
It's the same pain point that I think most businesses in general are struggling with, and it's employees, finding staff. I've got a buddy who has Subway franchises. He's got a few of those, and he tells me that he has a difficult time finding employees. And it's one thing if you get an employee that messes up somebody's sandwich.
Yeah.
Not welcomed, but not a big deal.
Yeah.
Make another one.
You can fix it.
Yeah. But in our industry, in any industry that is caring for people or animals or anything that's a living thing, we don't have that luxury. It's very critical that we get people that are exceptional. And finding those people and paying them, finding a way to pay them, the way that you the best you can, and hoping that they are going to be vested. That's the biggest challenge that I'm having.
Well, and I can imagine when you bought the franchise back in 22.
Yeah, it's 22. Yeah,
and now in 25, the wages that you were anticipating in 22 are very different than they are in 25.
Very different. And I don't understand it either. It's kind of one of those things that I don't really understand the progression of wages and how people are, making so much money at Starbucks or something. Yeah. It's just, I don't really
15, $20 an hour.
I know it's
for a starter wage.
Right. I can't understand how this is possible and scalable and reasonable. So it's a challenge, and I did see it coming. I knew that it was going to be a challenge. I didn't think it was going to go as high as it did. And I didn't think inflation was going to be what it was over the last few years. Was out of control inflation, and and I was not buying things yet. A lot of the things that we needed, the kennels and the fencing and a lot of the things that we need. There's lots and lots of things, big dollar cost that we didn't buy then, because you're not going to buy it until you're ready for it, right?
Yeah.
And so the cost of those things has gone up 20-30% in some cases.
Yeah.
So it's the numbers are a little, wiggly.
People, that is one of the hardest things right now.
Yeah. Right. And I don't know how to solve that. I mean, it's kind of almost an unsolvable riddle. I can't just keep, there's a good cartoon I love, and it shows this catapult and there's a big bag of money. Yeah. And so the guy walks over and he says, "So what you're telling me is to throw more money at the problem?" And this is not.
It's not a money problem.
It's not, and so I just can't. We're trying hard to have a good culture, and my wife and I say that we want to be the Chick-fil-A of our industry. Like we want to try to find a way to have a real good culture, and it's just hard, just getting people that have the right attitude and have the right work ethic and have the right, and you don't even need. I'll teach you how to do the things you need to do. Yeah. I just need those other couple things.
I need you to have the values. I need you to have those things that are important to you, and we'll take care of the rest.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that is very much with businesses I'm working with scaling.
Mm-hmm.
That's a conversation we're having.
Yeah.
Is how do we build culture?
Yeah.
I actually one of the companies, and as we kind of wrap things up, I talked with him last week. And he has this unique culture that's just like spreading like wildfire.
Nice.
With him.
Nice.
It's a construction company, so it's all a bunch of rough guys.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
And for them, every time they're on the phone, when they hang up, it's like, all right, I love you, brother.
Nice.
It's like, I mean, they're actually expressing,
Beautiful.
Outwardly,
That's
these,
nice.
I love you.
Yeah.
It's like, and having, I think that kind of culture, especially for him,
Yeah.
is just something that's like refreshing and,
Oh, man,
and
that's
powerful, and and I think to a large degree that's what people truly are looking for, is
Yeah.
someplace where they connect, where they feel loved and
Mhm.
accepted and welcomed and nurtured, and they have a chance to share
Mhm.
and be all those things, and that's what's been missing in our society.
I think
when
so.
we tap
And
into it.
I mean, and as we had mentioned, like the recent history that we've had, we were all confined to our homes,
Yeah.
and when we went out, we had to, socially
Keep distance,
distance, and so like I think we're reversing that and
Yeah.
unwinding that.
Yeah.
Is I think what has to happen. I don't know how to do that, but that's what I see as kind of
Yeah.
like we need to kind of undo a lot of the stuff that happens somehow.
We do, and it will come. Human nature will demand it, I think.
Yeah, I feel that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, Tom, I've enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Enjoyed
Thank you.
getting to know you.
This has been
and
great.
Dog Stop. And again, we will put your information down in the comments section of the
Thank
video,
you.
so people can find you and use you
Awesome.
and take their dogs out and get them groomed and boarded
you.
and all those things that you do to take care of our furry family friends.
Well, this has been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. Appreciate your time. Hopefully you got something out of this. I'm sure you did. I've gotten something out of it every time I have one of these conversations. It's just is fun and enjoyable. So we will be moving this time to Fridays at 11 o'clock because of some schedule things. So moving forward, we won't be here next Wednesday, but it'll be next Friday. And find us then. And word will go out. So until then, have a great day.